Okay.
Hi everyone. So I am Caitlin Davis, which most of you know that, but just a reminder for other new faces still. So my project, I'm going to kind of just start with the timeline. It starts actually at the beginning of this spring semester. So it's actually not just this fall, but it's really ended up being this continuation of a much bigger thing. So this last spring, I interned with an organization here in Boulder. It's a nonprofit. They're an arts and media advocacy group for, their mission is to eradicate child exploitation and engage culture and creative solutions, which is really great that Meg Morris came from the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking Tuesday to give a presentation. It really sort of sets this up. So I Empathize and LCHT have done a lot of partnerships together, training law enforcement officers. And so it's the idea, I Empathize, they do, in arts and media advocacy group, they do documentaries and they do films and they do art exhibits to really try to invite people into the issue, also thinking about empathy being a huge point of that. Empathy is sort of entering into somebody else's suffering, where sympathy is sort of sitting on the sidelines and just feeling bad for someone. So anyway, this internship that I had, it was through the anthropology department actually. So I had an anthro faculty advisor and I set it up through kind of an independent study internship. And so one of the projects that I was tasked with, I was doing a lot with I Empathize, but because they've had this partnership also with LCHT and some law enforcement officers, I was tasked doing a little bit of partnership with the Andar. She's the victim specialist of the Innocence Lost Task Force for like the FBI in Denver. And so a lot of her role, she is really like the first point of contact for a lot of victims of violent crime. And so what she really needed, she's got all of this wealth of knowledge of contacts and networks and service providers, but she can't really share that because it's kind of all archived in her head a little bit. I'll pull that up in a little bit, so not a big deal. So anyway, Anne asked us if it was my partner and I that in this internship, if we would build a resource directory that would basically compile all of her notes into a giant sort of directory of service providers. And this is including everything medical, dental, psychiatric, tattoo removal, transitional housing, job, GED, LGBTQ resources. So it's sort of this vast spectrum of resources all into some kind of directory. And so I have a little bit of a background in academic technology here at CU, and so I suggested, let's use Google Apps, let's use Google Sites, a Google spreadsheet, because rather than doing it in something in Excel and you update a file and then nobody has it anymore, I thought, hey, we can really build some collaboration potential and we could really easily distribute this resource directory to anybody that needs to if we use this platform. She said, run with it, just go for it. They definitely are pretty limited on resources and funding at the Innocence Lost Task Force, so anything that a college student could bring to the table, she was really pleased with. So we built this resource directory, and let me show you, you first actually saw this site, but I want to show you the resource directory first. Oh, it's just asleep? Oh, yes. Okay. This is actually the product that we had. So you can kind of see here, all of these tabs down here at the bottom. We have restoration, aftercare, shelters, food banks. We can go substance abuse facilities. So it was basically, it was the bare bones of this is the organization, this is the description, this is the contact information. Really not a great way to organize information here. There's a lot of it and it's kind of all there. It's the best, better than anything they had. It's better than everything that was archived in Anne's head, but it really just wasn't very good. So anyway, we spent a lot of hours putting this together. We presented it at the May 21st Front Range Anti-Trafficking Coalition meeting. So that was sort of the audience that this would be used for, the Front Range Anti-Trafficking Coalition. They're kind of a newer group of law enforcement officers and a lot of service providers sort of that work in aftercare realm, all kind of coming together on this issue of counter-trafficking. So we presented it at this meeting, and everyone seemed pretty interested, but the unfortunate thing is we didn't get any feedback in the following days that we had asked for. So we kind of thought probably no feedback means that nobody was really looking too much at this spreadsheet, because it definitely needed some help, and we really weren't getting much feedback. So my internship came to an end, and I told Anne, hey, I know we're done working together and this internship's over, but I'm not happy with this. We're not done with this. I've got an idea. I will build you a Google site, which will be a little bit more accessible. It's just one step closer. I don't have a background in web design. I just have done a little bit with academic technology, so just minimal technology skill set. But I just sort of had this thought, like I could build a site, it wouldn't take that much work to just arrange this in a better way. There's a better way to do this. So I told Anne at the beginning of the summer, okay, I will build this site. And I think sort of the anxiety of sort of the momentous, I built it up in my head that it was a much bigger thing than it was. And so I sort of was paralyzed by chronic procrastination and didn't do anything the whole summer. I was pretty busy anyways, and I realized like, wow, I'm not doing this for an internship, I'm not doing this for credit anymore. This is gonna take a lot of time and energy, and I just didn't really have it. And so I kind of thought my opportunity was lost until I got to Capstone, and tasked us to pick a project, something that's meaningful to you, something that you can really benefit from the resources of students in the class, having guided reflection, and really something that you couldn't do. Ange said, do something that you couldn't have do without the 3 years of leadership development up to this point. And so really, I mean, this was a great way to invest. It was a continuation of an investment I had already made, so it really mattered to me, but also I just couldn't help but think this really could be the puzzle piece in communication, that like I could fill this piece. If the Front Range Coalition all had each other's contact information and they didn't have to go through Anne, then they would talk to each other and they would scheme up these great things and everyone would take initiative. I just really thought like this would be like the golden idea. And so I decided I wanted to build this site during this class. Quickly realized there's a lot more that I could do besides just sort of build a site, because that wouldn't really take that much time, and this is a whole semester. So I kind of informally just continued my internship with I Empathize. Without credit, without actually being an intern, I just did all the things. So we had Empathy Week on campus, so I spent a lot of hours talking with other students on campus, getting people involved in sort of the fundraising efforts. I designed kind of our whole mattress vigil fundraiser, sort of the marketing, but also the process by which we would do it, and had pointed conversations with different student leaders about how they could get involved. I've been to some of I Empathize their fundraisers and just volunteered at the registration table. I've just sort of done a lot of the intern things. You know, they say jump and you say how high when you're an intern. So I did a lot of that this semester, along with building a site. And so I ended up revealing the bare bones of the site at the November meeting of the Front Range anti-trafficking meeting. And so I'll show you, I mean, you sort of saw the site. It's pretty underdeveloped. I'll just sort of leave it at that. I mean, the biggest thing I've learned in this whole process for me is this is an experience of a long-term project for me. This is greater than a semester. It's so hard, I think, to break out of like semester-long projects, and this has been the longest thing I've ever committed to, because it was something I started in January, and here we are at the end of the year, and I'm still connected, and I know that I need to be. This still isn't where it's at. I mean, the biggest thing that this site has, instead of the resource directory, you can click which page you want, and it will take you to that spreadsheet. So it's sort of that integration, and it might not go, and that's okay. And then just having a list, this is another big component, having current members, a full list of the members of the Front Range Anti-Trafficking Coalition. You wouldn't believe this organization exists, and this isn't out there for like, oh, I want to talk to Dawn or Randy from these places. So it's, you know, it's a key, it's a starting point. You know, a lot of places that I have to go from here. The biggest thing that I hope this sort of could come about, I would hope this would inspire or sort of even be a red flag for this organization or someone else that is maybe a professional web developer to say, oh, I could help here. Like, I could give my professional skills. Like, I could take what is here and transfer it into something a little bit more professional. And so I just want to show you really quick. I mean, this is where I'd want to go. This is the Bay Area Anti-Trafficking's website. You know, looks a little different. This is Washington Engage, their anti-trafficking. It's sort of a regional group, what other websites are looking like. So I used a lot of models to kind of have to make decisions about how to organize information, how to make it accessible. Still is a problem, still is a process. But I also feel confident that I'm not just gonna let this drop off, because I've been committed all year long. So it just is a slow process. And that can be a little bit frustrating, but that's a little bit about my project. Still going, not over yet, but thank you for your time today. you.